Welcome to Driving to College. Today we'll be cruising around campus in my personal daily driver, my 1982 BMW 320i. I love this car and I hope you enjoy the drive with me. Today we're at Bethel College in North Newton, Kansas, and we'll be talking about financial aid as an overview, and then I'll give you some tips on the FAFSA. So what is financial aid? My definition of financial aid that you may not find in Webster's dictionary is that financial aid is essentially all the different buckets from which you can take money to help pay for college. So let's talk about what are the main buckets. The first bucket is the loan bucket. I know not everybody wants to think about this bucket, and that there's a lot of talk in the media about student loan crisis in our country, which I believe is true. But loans are one way that students can afford to pay for college. Loans typically come in two different types. They're federal loans, and that would be a student loan through the Stafford Loan Program or a PLUS loan for parents. And then there are private loans as well, so different banks or other financial institutions are willing to loan students and families money for college. Typically, the federal loans have better interest rates and payback plans, but private loans are fairly competitive on that as well. The next main bucket is the grants bucket. Grants bucket is great because it's free money. So later on we'll talk about the FAFSA, but through the FAFSA filing process, you will find out whether or not your student is eligible for a federal grant, which could be a Pell Grant or an SEOG grant. Those are both need-based grants. Or you might find out as well if your student is eligible for a state grant. So most states will have some sort of grant money to help students in that state pay for college. And most states will determine eligibility for their grants through the FAFSA. So you'll want to check your state and see what kind of grant they have, and you'll want to be aware of the filing deadline for that. So the next bucket is also a free money bucket, and that is scholarships. Scholarships are typically awarded by institutions to students based off of either high school or previous college work, academic success, or they can give performance-based scholarships, which would be athletics or fine arts or some other type of scholarship that they would give for a student to be involved in some sort of performance-based activity. And then there are probably scholarships that students can apply for through the school, either that are one-time scholarships or something, or money that has been donated to the school in the form of a scholarship. So you'll want to check out with the school whether or not they have any additional scholarships that you can apply for. Another scholarship area is the community scholarship. So that would be typically in your community, let's say your local chamber of commerce, or a service club like Rotary or Elks or Lions or something like that. Or even local businesses might have money that they have determined that they will give to students to help them afford college. The best resource to find out community-based scholarships is typically your high school guidance counselor. Somebody over there should have a list of all the different scholarships that are available for seniors in high school to apply for. Typically, community scholarships would be one-time scholarships to help pay for the transition to college. The next main bucket would be the work bucket. So this could be a job on campus or off campus, or it could also be part of the federal work study plan. Through the FAFSA, which again we'll talk about in a little bit here, through the FAFSA you will know whether or not your student is federal work study eligible, and that might be helpful because a lot of schools will post on-campus jobs that are essentially available through work study funds or for work study approved students. Work is a good bucket. It's not free money, but it is a good bucket and a way to get some money. And the final bucket that I think is a major one for funding college is your personal savings or investment or assets. So whatever you and your family have been able to kind of put away or save in a 529 plan or something else like that, that is, again, another avenue that you can use, another bucket that you can dip into to help pay for college. So let's talk a little bit about the FAFSA. You've probably heard it by now, and I've mentioned it a couple of times. So what is it? What do the letters stand for? FAFSA stands for the Free Application for Federal Student Aid. That first F, free, is an important one. You should not pay to fill out the FAFSA. You should be able to go to fafsa.gov and fill it out for free. So fafsa.gov, free application for federal student aid. The FAFSA is going to spit out one key term that's going to be really important, and that is EFC. If you hear somebody talking about EFC, that stands for Expected Family Contribution. So the FAFSA is going to have you fill out all sorts of information, and at the end it's going to say, here's your expected family contribution for this coming year or for this specific year of college. But let's be clear what it is not. EFC is not what the government thinks you should pay out of pocket for a year of college. It is simply a measure of family financial strength that will take into account income and jobs, assets, essentially all the different resources that a family has to pay for college. And then they'll use that EFC number to help determine financial need. Here's a quick tip about EFC that I picked up about 5 years ago, and that is that if your student has been saving money to buy a car or a computer or something for college, then my tip would be to buy that car or that computer before you file the FAFSA, so prior to whenever you're going to file the FAFSA, so October 1st through usually May of their senior year, go ahead and buy the car or the computer before that, because the government will count student savings for college as a family asset and will take that into account for your EFC. But they won't take into account a car or a computer, so go ahead and use that money for its intended purpose a little earlier than the summer before they leave, because it could show that you have less EFC and I could change things up. So that's just a quick tip. So let's talk about another key term, and that term is COA, or cost of attendance. So cost of attendance is going to fluctuate based off of the school, and that COA figure is going to be the combination of tuition, fees, books, room and board that your student will spend per year at a specific institution. So the financial aid office will figure out your COA, your cost of attendance, and then typically what they will do is subtract your EFC to get your student need. So for an example, you're looking at a school where the combination of tuition, fees, books, and housing and room and board is $40,000. And you've filed the FAFSA and it has come back and said that you have an expected family contribution of $5,000 per year. The school will factor $40,000 COA minus $5,000 EFC to come up with $35,000 in need as they're looking to award need-based scholarships. So COA is going to change depending on which school you're at and how much tuition, fees, books, and room and board cost. And of course, EFC is going to fluctuate per family depending on what your different situation that you bring to the college process is. One other tip is that the FAFSA is something that needs to be filled out every year or filed every year. So it's not, unfortunately, something you do at the beginning of college and then you're done, but it is something that you will do for your student every year that they're in college, every year that is that they want to have potentially a loan or free money or scholarships. So that brings me to a question that I'm often asked, and that is parents will say to me, should we file the FAFSA? Well, I don't think we're going to get any free money here. And my response to that typically is, well, yes, I still recommend that you do file the FAFSA because the formula is a little bit complicated and we never know for sure. But if you file the FAFSA, that will give you access to loans at a good rate. That'll give you never know, a chance for some free grant money, for some free state money, and institutions often will use that information to award scholarships as well. So typically, I think, yes, it is probably worth the time to fill out the FAFSA. Sometimes then they'll say, well, do I have to fill out the FAFSA to attend school? And the answer to that is no. You do not have to file the FAFSA to attend school. To attend school, you need to apply and get accepted and make a financial plan and arrangement to pay for college, but you shouldn't have to fill out the FAFSA to attend. Let's talk a little bit about FAFSA, taxes, and timelines. So let's say your student's going to start school in the fall of 2022. So that's 2022, and that's their start year. When you file the FAFSA in their senior year of high school for the 2022 year, the government will look at your 2020 tax return. Or to shorten it a little bit, let's say you're working right now for the start of school this coming fall of 2020. The FAFSA is open for you. Let's say you sit down tonight to fill it out, and they will ask for your 2018 tax return. So get your taxes in order, have 2 years back, and that will help you out significantly. The other key tip is you may be thinking, well, that's rough for us because 2018 looked a whole lot better than 2019 did. We're in nowhere near the shape that we were 2 years ago. Maybe somebody lost a job, or maybe somebody got hurt on the job and you're on disability and you're making less. Or let's see if you've decided to start a business and be entrepreneurs and you're not making quite the money that you were, or there's been a divorce, or somehow the financial landscape has shifted for you in between. You can ask the college that you're working with about a professional judgment. So professional judgment is a term that any financial aid director or officer should be aware of, and that is essentially you saying, our financial situation looks a lot different now than it did 2 years ago, and then you can ask them about that, and that financial aid office should be able to help you with a couple of forms to fill out to decide whether or not they can do a professional judgment, in which case, if it's something they can do, it can change your EFC. So if you've had a major money shift in your family in the 2 years, the year prior, go ahead and ask that office about a professional judgment. So let's go through a few other tips on research before you get ready to sit down and file. The first tip I have is something you're already doing. You're watching this video, you're aware of this channel, so you're on the internet doing some research on the FAFSA. That's great. If you have questions that I haven't hit so far, feel free to put those down below and I will incorporate them into a future video. The next major resource would be the FAFSA.gov website. So yeah, that's the site that you'll go to file your FAFSA, but it also has a lot of great information on how to prepare for that, what information you'll need, and kind of overview of what the FAFSA filing process looks like. The official U.S. Department of Education blog, which is called Home Room, is also a really good resource to hit prior to filing the FAFSA, so go ahead and take a look at that and learn what you can there. And then there's a website that I really like, and it's fastweb.com. So earlier I mentioned that each state will kind of have a different deadline that you'll need to file the FAFSA to maybe qualify for that state's grant money. So I would encourage you on fastweb.com to find the page that lists all the states and their deadlines. Find your state and find its deadline and make sure you file your FAFSA prior to that deadline so that you don't miss out on potential money simply by missing that deadline. Fastweb.com is a really good resource for scholarships and in general ways to fund the college or university experience. And then finally, I would say talk to the admissions staff or financial aid staff at any school that you're working with. If they're emailing you or texting your student or sending money, sending things in the mail, they're probably not sending money. But if they're sending pamphlets in the mail, that means they're offering their help to help you and your family find the right school for the right cost. Of course, they want that school to be theirs, but that's all right. Go ahead and listen to them and utilize their help. If you've got a question about the FAFSA, go ahead and ask them and say, hey, I need some help with the FAFSA. And you will learn a lot about that school based off of their response. A good admissions counselor should be trained that if they don't know the answer, they can say, I'm not sure right now, but I know how to find the answer. Can I do that? And can I get back to you in a day or 2 days or 3 days? And I'll have the information and we can talk through it then. So I would say go ahead and use the admissions counselors as a resource there. So I know that you're doing research. I know you want to find the right school and be able to afford it and pay for it for your children as they think through the next several years of life. I hope you enjoy the journey and I wish you plenty of luck. Have fun.